How are you able to overcome those barriers? Like, what was your strategy for ensuring that this was a more accessible endeavor for all, but also just expanding it so that you have the best quality, high fidelity data possible in order to further research in a very sound way?
Well, I learned a lesson early on. I had a colleague who was a PhD scientist, and she had a partnership with the surgeons. And they basically took biopsies and gave them to her before the pathologist got a hold of the specimen, which is not actually legal anymore. I'm not sure it ever was legal, but there are clear laws against disassembling the specimen before it gets to pathology without pathology's understanding and acquiescence. And she had a big tissue bank, and we went back to look at the tissue bank when I was in a position to actually QA specimens for inclusion in a big study. And what we found is the vast majority of those specimens were garbage. They were necrotic material, they didn't have viable tumor cells. I understood why my colleagues did this. I mean, the surgeons wanted to participate and support my colleague, and she wanted to do the research. They weren't, doing anything nefarious, but by skipping the QA step of pathology in the specimen, they actually missed an opportunity to have really viable specimens for research. So I learned that you had to have a team sport. And I learned that for pathology, they really were not incentivized to do this. So you needed pathology. So basically, the long winded answer is I tried to deeply understand the motivations and the incentives and the barriers for each person who played a role in the process. And only by doing that, I think, can one really create mechanisms to support it. And these are expensive mechanisms, and most institutions are really not able to find the resources to put institutional wide mechanisms in place. So, what it means is members of the institution who have a lot of resources, whether it be grant dollars or donor dollars, will have their own mechanism. And then somebody over here will need it, but they don't have a mechanism. So there's a lot of equity and inequities that are baked into the current ecosystem. So it just takes, I needed to understand it, I needed to learn it, and I needed to figure out what was required to solve it. But solving it is never easy.
Definitely.